For those who don't know, Ariel is a Hawaiian native. So when did you move to Louisville and how long have you been living here?
So I initially, well, moved to Kentucky in general around like December of 2016.
Mm.
Started off in Radcliffe, Kentucky, and then about 2 to 3 years after that, moved into the Louisville community, which I have liked it thus far, living in the bigger city.
Okay, okay. Where were you at before Kentucky?
So before Kentucky, I'm actually originally from Oahu, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Specifically on the North Shore of Oahu. My mother's side of the family, we women in the family have always had that strong lineage to Hawaii, and so that's sort of how I ended up out there.
Awesome, awesome. And for those who don't know, like I was born in Oahu. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're living here now. So what drew you to the arts?
Honestly, I feel like I've always had an inclination to be artistic, specifically because my mother has dabbled in paints, and then my dad, he's always been a really good drawer. And so they've always encouraged me to just continue with my passion for art. And then from that point, it wasn't until I was actually in high school where my English teacher introduced me to poetry. And that's where I kind of like honed into that side of my creative talents as well.
What triggered you to kind of dip back into that, and then why specifically that minimalist style?
Well, I mean, just by virtue of being on social media, I've started to see a lot of hashtags for digital illustrators. And I had never tried digital art before. I've always been so old fashioned with the paper and pencil. But, with the paper and pencil, when you make mistakes, you're constantly erasing, the paper gets crumpled. I mean, there's always issues. So I had looked into getting into one of those iPad devices so that I could just kind of like learn Photoshop on my own. So I am self-taught. And I like the idea of being able to tell deep stories with like minimal strokes from the art devices, because I feel like you can still be very clear and concise but tell the story that you want to tell with your art. And so a lot of my focus has been like women of different cultures, which I like to elaborate on features, whether it becomes to hair, things like that. So.
And that's actually gotten you to some interesting opportunities. I remember you worked with a company. Like, how did that happen?
So the company I was working for found me randomly through social media because I always try to utilize a lot of different tags every time I'm posting because I want to appear in as many feeds as possible. And the company that I was working for was in the process of developing a website for actors located in regard to this business called Tap Room. And so from there, they just kind of sent me some pictures of their clients, asked me to do some mock-ups. They really liked my work, and it just kind of shot off from there. So it was a really great opportunity, which I really wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, she's really out here doing it. That's what's up. That's awesome. And what I like about your work is that you always, like you said, you always highlight women of color. And so when it comes to diversity, you're very diverse with the art that you showcase. And you've done a coloring book, and you're working on a book called Hair Love, right?
Yes. So the title of the book is actually called Her Hair, Your Hair. And I'm just working on this aspect of, which we just focus on two main characters of different ethnical backgrounds that can highlight two little girls lifting themselves up without having to focus on the differences from each other. So it's an interesting project. I'm still in the process of trying to find a literary agent to help me kind of take that to the next level, but I have finally finished all of my drawings for that. So that's been exciting.
That's good. Now, why is it important to you to showcase different ethnicities in your work? Well, now what kind of brings you to that instead of telling like the same monolithic story? Why do you feel like you need to highlight different people in different groups?
I just think for me, well, just when I look at myself, I'm more than just a Hawaiian woman. I also am African American. I have Filipino and Japanese in my heritage as well from my great grandfathers. And so having that kind of cultural lens on the world just forces me to want to include as many people as possible, because so many people have different stories, different world experiences that bring a unique vision to the table.